The eviction notice felt like ice against Valencia Torres's fingertips. She stood in the narrow kitchen of her apartment, the paper trembling in her hand as the words blurred together. 72 hours. That was all she had left before the landlord would force her and her 2 children onto the street. The notice had been taped to her door when she came home from another failed job interview, the third one this week that ended with, "We'll call you," and a sympathetic smile that meant they wouldn't. Her bakery job had ended 6 weeks ago when the shop closed down. 6 weeks of watching her savings drain away like water through a broken cup. 6 weeks of stretching every dollar until it screamed. 6 weeks of smiling at her kids and pretending everything would be fine while terror clawed at her throat every night. Valencia set the notice on the counter and pressed her palms flat against the cool surface. In the next room, she could hear the soft breathing of her children. Destiny, 8 years old, and Jordan, 6, slept peacefully, unaware that their mother was drowning. They'd eaten the last of the pasta for dinner. Tomorrow there would be cereal for breakfast, and after that she didn't know. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator, a sound that usually comforted her but now felt like mockery. She'd built a life here, modest but stable, after her husband Michael died 4 years ago in a construction accident. She'd worked double shifts, learned to bake professionally, created a safe space for her babies. And now it was crumbling. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Probably another overdue bill notice. She almost didn't look, but something made her pick it up. It was a notification from a job board she'd signed up for weeks ago and forgotten about. Private cook needed. Immediate start. Competitive salary plus housing. Contact Theodore Grant. Valencia's heart stuttered. Housing. The word seemed to glow on the screen. Her fingers moved before her brain could catch up, opening the full posting. The address listed was in Meadowbrook Estates, the wealthy area on the north side of town where houses had names instead of numbers. The salary listed made her blink twice, certain she was reading it wrong. It was 3 times what she'd made at the bakery. This had to be fake. People didn't post jobs like this, offering everything she needed exactly when she needed it. But what did she have to lose? In 72 hours, she'd be homeless anyway. She typed out a response with shaking fingers. "Hello, my name is Valencia Torres. I have 8 years of professional cooking experience and can start immediately. I'm a single mother of 2 children ages 8 and 6, and I would be grateful for the opportunity to interview." She hit send before she could second-guess herself and set the phone down. The apartment felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. She walked to the doorway of her children's room and watched them sleep. Destiny had one arm flung over her head, her dark curls spread across the pillow. Jordan clutched his favorite stuffed dog, the one Michael had won for him at a carnival months before the accident. "I'll fix this," Valencia whispered into the darkness. "I promise." Her phone buzzed again. She jumped, her heart racing as she grabbed it. "Can you come tomorrow morning at 9? Address is 1847 Willowbrook Lane. Bring your children. Theodore Grant." Valencia read the message 3 times. Bring your children. Not "childcare is your responsibility," or "this is a child-free workplace." Bring your children. Her fingers trembled as she typed back. "Yes, thank you. I'll be there." She set the phone down and pressed her hands to her face. This could be anything. A scam. A dangerous situation. But what choice did she have? Stay here and wait for the sheriff to remove them? Watch her children's faces when they realized they had nowhere to go? No. She would take this chance. She would walk into that mansion tomorrow and accept whatever help was offered, because pride was a luxury she could no longer afford, and her children needed a roof over their heads more than she needed to protect her ego. Valencia looked at the eviction notice one more time, then crumpled it into a ball and threw it in the trash. Tomorrow would be different. It had to be. The question haunted her through the sleepless night. When did asking for help become harder than suffering alone? If you've ever stood at the edge of desperation, wondering if you should reach out or keep drowning quietly, leave a comment below. Tell me what you would do. And if this story touches something in you, subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Sometimes the answers we need come from the most unexpected places. Valencia woke her children before dawn, helping them dress in their nicest clothes. Destiny's blue dress was getting small, and Jordan's button-up shirt had a small stain she couldn't get out, but they looked presentable. She braided Destiny's hair carefully and made sure Jordan's shoes were tied tight. "Where are we going, Mama?" Destiny asked, her dark eyes curious and trusting. "To meet someone about a job," Valencia said, smoothing her daughter's collar. "A cooking job. Will there be food?" Jordan asked hopefully. The question broke something in Valencia's chest. "Yes, baby. There will be food." She'd used the last of her gas money to make sure the car would get them there. The drive to Meadowbrook Estates took 20 minutes, and with every mile the houses grew larger and the lawns more manicured. Valencia's old sedan rattled past iron gates and stone walls, past properties that could have held 10 of her apartment buildings. When she found 1847 Willowbrook Lane, she had to pull over just to stare. The house wasn't a house. It was an estate. 3 stories of pale stone and glass, surrounded by gardens that looked like they belonged in magazines. A circular driveway wrapped around a fountain where water sparkled in the morning sun. Trees lined the property, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. Wow, Destiny breathed from the back seat. Valencia's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What was she doing here? She was a widow from the South Side who'd learned to cook in her grandmother's kitchen and worked her way up to assistant baker at a neighborhood shop. She didn't belong in places like this. But then she thought of the eviction notice. The empty refrigerator. Jordan asking if there would be food. She drove up to the front entrance and parked, helping her children out of the car. They stood together, 3 people in worn clothes staring up at impossible wealth. Valencia took a deep breath, squeezed her children's hands, and walked up the stone steps to the massive front door. Before she could knock, it opened. A woman in her 60s stood there, wearing a simple gray dress and a kind smile. You must be Valencia. I'm Patricia, the housekeeper. Mr. Grant is expecting you. Thank you, Valencia managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Patricia's eyes softened as she looked at Destiny and Jordan. And who are these beautiful children? I'm Destiny, her daughter said, remembering her manners. This is my brother Jordan. Well, come in all of you. Mr. Grant is in the kitchen. The interior of the house was as overwhelming as the exterior. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that probably cost more than Valencia had earned in her lifetime. But Patricia moved through it like it was normal, leading them down a hallway and through a set of double doors into the largest kitchen Valencia had ever seen. It was a cook's dream. Professional-grade appliances, miles of counter space, windows that let in natural light. And sitting at a small table near the windows was a man who looked as lost as Valencia felt. Theodore Grant was probably in his late 30s, tall and lean, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His dark hair was slightly messy, and there were shadows under his blue eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. He stood when they entered, and Valencia saw something flicker across his face when he looked at her children. Pain maybe. Or memory. Miss Torres, he said, his voice quiet but steady. Thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Grant. Valencia kept one hand on Destiny's shoulder, the other on Jordan's. Her children pressed close to her sides, intimidated by the grandeur around them. Theodore's gaze moved to the kids. And you brought your children. Good. Please sit down. Patricia, could you bring some juice and cookies for Destiny and Jordan? Of course, Patricia said warmly, already moving toward the pantry. Valencia guided her children to the table, and they all sat. Theodore remained standing for a moment, seeming uncertain, before settling back into his chair. He looked at Valencia directly, and she saw exhaustion in his eyes that matched her own. I'll be honest with you, Theodore said. I'm not good at interviews. I haven't been good at much of anything for the past 2 years. But I need help, and you said you need work, so let's just talk plainly. Valencia nodded, her throat tight. I need someone who can cook. 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. I'll pay you $60,000 a year, plus full medical benefits for you and your children. There's a guest house on the property with 3 bedrooms that you can live in rent-free. Utilities included. The numbers didn't make sense. They were too good, too perfect. Valencia opened her mouth to ask why, what the catch was, but then she remembered the eviction notice. The empty pantry. Her promise to her children. I accept, she said. When can we start? Something flickered in Theodore's eyes. Surprise maybe, or relief. Today if you'd like. Patricia can show you the guest house. You can move your things whenever you're ready. We don't have much to move, Valencia said quietly. And I need to be out of my apartment by Friday, so today works. Theodore nodded slowly, studying her face. You're in trouble. It wasn't a question. Valencia felt her cheeks heat, but she lifted her chin. I lost my job 6 weeks ago. My savings ran out. I got an eviction notice yesterday. So yes, I'm in trouble, and yes, I need this job desperately, and I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired because my children need stability and safety, and I'll give you that in return. The silence that followed felt heavy. Destiny and Jordan sat very still, sensing the weight of the moment. Theodore's expression was unreadable. Then he said, Patricia, Can you take Destiny and Jordan to see the garden? There's a koi pond they might like. Patricia appeared with a plate of cookies and 2 glasses of apple juice. Come on, sweethearts. Let's go look at the fish while your mama talks with Mr. Grant. Destiny looked at Valencia, who nodded permission. The children followed Patricia out, Jordan clutching 2 cookies in his small hands. When they were alone, Theodore leaned back in his chair. I'm going to pay for movers to get your things today. Give Patricia your address and I'll have a company there this afternoon. You and your children will stay in the guest house starting tonight. In addition to your salary, I'll cover any outstanding debts you have. Consider it a signing bonus. Valencia's vision blurred. Why? Because 2 years ago, I lost my wife and daughter in a car accident, Theodore said, his voice flat in the way of someone who'd said these words too many times. Since then, I've lived in this house alone and it's been killing me slowly. I've tried therapists and pills and work and travel and nothing helps. But yesterday when I posted that job ad, it was the first thing I've done in 2 years that felt like it might matter. And when you responded, saying you were a single mother who needed help, something in me woke up. So I'm offering you this job not just because I need a cook, but because maybe helping you will help me remember how to be human again. Tears spilled down Valencia's cheeks. She didn't try to hide them. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay. Say you'll cook in that kitchen and let your children play in that garden and let me pay you what you're worth for bringing life back to this place. Theodore's voice cracked slightly. Say you'll take what I'm offering without guilt or hesitation because you need it and I need to give it. Valencia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Every instinct told her this was too much, too fast, too good to be true. But she thought of her babies looking at fish in a garden, drinking juice and eating cookies without worry. She thought of the guest house with 3 bedrooms and no eviction notices. She thought of Theodore's hollow eyes and the way he'd looked at her children like they were both painful and precious. Yes, she said. I'll stay. I'll cook for you and I'll let you help us and I'll be grateful for every single day of it. Theodore exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath. Thank you. I should be thanking you. We can thank each other, Theodore said, and for the first time, Valencia saw the ghost of a smile on his face. Now, let's go find your children and show you where you'll be living. Valencia stood, her legs shaky. As she followed Theodore through the beautiful house toward the garden where her children's laughter was already ringing out, she felt the weight she'd been carrying for 6 weeks begin to lift. She didn't know what the future held. Didn't know if this job would last or if Theodore Grant would remain this generous. But right now, in this moment, she knew her children would have beds to sleep in tonight and food in their bellies, and that was enough. That was everything. The guest house sat at the edge of the property, connected to the main mansion by a stone pathway that wound through gardens bursting with late summer blooms. As Patricia led them toward it, Valencia tried to manage her expectations. Guest house probably meant something small, a cottage maybe, something functional but modest. She was wrong. The building before them was larger than any place Valencia had ever lived. 2 stories of warm brick and white trim, with window boxes full of flowers and a front porch that wrapped around the side. Patricia pulled out a key and opened the door, stepping back to let Valencia and the children enter first. The inside was furnished completely. A living room with comfortable couches and a television. A kitchen with new appliances and granite countertops. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms each with real furniture and soft bedding. 2 bathrooms with fluffy towels already hanging on the racks. Mr. Grant had it cleaned and stocked this morning, Patricia explained, watching Valencia's stunned expression. After you responded to his ad last night, he called a service. The refrigerator and pantry are full. There's toiletries in the bathrooms, clothes in various sizes in the closets in case what you have needs supplementing. He wasn't sure what you'd need, so he tried to cover everything. Valencia walked through the rooms in a daze. Destiny and Jordan raced upstairs, their excited voices echoing as they explored. This was more than a job. This was a rescue. Why? Valencia asked again the same question she'd asked Theodore. Why would he do all this? Patricia's expression softened with sadness. Because he understands what it's like to lose everything. When Mrs. Evelyn and little Sophie died, something broke in him. He's been trying to put himself back together ever since. Maybe he thinks helping you will help him. Maybe it will. Tell me about them, Valencia said quietly. His family. Patricia moved to the window looking out at the gardens. Evelyn was like sunshine. She loved those gardens, spent hours out there. Sophie was 4 years old, full of energy and laughter. They were coming home from Sophie's dance recital when a drunk driver ran a red light. She paused, her voice thick. Theodore was supposed to go with them, but he had a business call that ran late. He's never forgiven himself. Valencia's chest ached. She knew guilt, knew the weight of wondering if you could have changed things. When Michael died, she'd replayed that morning 1,000 times. What if she'd asked him to stay home? What if she'd kissed him longer at the door? How long have you worked for him? Valencia asked. 20 years. I was here when he brought Evelyn home as a bride. I watched Sophie grow. Patricia turned back to Valencia. He's a good man, Valencia. He's hurting, but he's good. And I think you being here, your children being here, might be exactly what this place needs. Before Valencia could respond, Destiny appeared at the top of the stairs. Mama, there's a room up here with a desk and bookshelves. Can that be mine? Baby, you can pick whichever room you want, Valencia said, her voice catching. Jordan peeked out from another doorway. I want the one with the blue walls. Then it's yours. Patricia smiled. I'll leave you to settle in. The movers will be here around 3 o'clock. Mr. Grant wants you to take the rest of today to get comfortable. Tomorrow morning you'll start preparing breakfast. He usually eats at 7, but he's flexible. What is he like? Valencia asked, her mind already shifting into professional mode. Anything really. He barely eats most days. Evelyn used to make him French toast on Sundays. He loved that. Patricia's eyes grew distant. He hasn't had it since she died. After Patricia left, Valencia stood in the middle of the living room and slowly turned in a circle. This morning she'd woken up facing homelessness. Now she was standing in a house nicer than anywhere she'd ever dreamed of living, with a job that paid more than she'd imagined earning, for a man who seemed to need saving as much as she did. Mama, is this really ours? Destiny asked from the stairs. For as long as we work here, yes. Are we going to stay a long time? Valencia looked at her daughter's hopeful face. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we do. The movers arrived at 3 just as Patricia had promised. Valencia had packed their belongings in a rush, throwing clothes and dishes and treasured items into boxes. When the truck pulled up to her apartment building, she'd felt shame at how little there was. Everything they owned fit in one small moving van. But when the movers carried it all into the guest house, unpacking boxes into clean rooms with space to spare, the shame transformed into gratitude. Destiny's books lined the shelves in her new room. Jordan's stuffed animals found homes on his blue-painted bed. Valencia's few kitchen items looked small in the large kitchen, but she'd fill it over time. By evening they were settled. Valencia made dinner from the stocked pantry, simple pasta with vegetables, and they ate at the dining table like a real family. Through the window, she could see the main house lit up against the darkening sky. Can we go exploring tomorrow? Jordan asked, tomato sauce on his chin. We'll see. Mama has to work tomorrow. Cooking for the sad man? Destiny asked. Valencia paused. Mr. Grant isn't sad, baby. He's just lonely. You're lonely too sometimes, Destiny said with the blunt honesty of children. I hear you crying at night. Valencia's throat tightened. She reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. I was lonely, but we're going to be okay now. All of us. That night, after she'd tucked both children into their new beds and kissed them goodnight, Valencia stood in her own room and looked at herself in the mirror. She was 32 years old, a widow with 2 children, starting over in a stranger's guest house. But the woman looking back at her had light in her eyes for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow she would cook. She would take the ingredients Theodore Grant provided and transform them into meals that mattered. And maybe, just maybe, she would help heal a broken man while putting her own pieces back together. Valencia woke before dawn out of habit. The house was quiet, her children still sleeping. She dressed in simple black pants and a clean white shirt, pulled her dark hair into a neat bun, and walked the stone path to the main house as the sun began to rise. Patricia had given her a key to the kitchen entrance. Valencia let herself in quietly, then stopped to take it all in. This was her workspace now. This gleaming, perfect kitchen with more tools and ingredients than she'd ever had access to. She started coffee first, the rich smell filling the air. Then she opened the refrigerator and began pulling out ingredients. Eggs, cream, bread, butter, vanilla, cinnamon. Her hands moved with familiar confidence as she prepared French toast, remembering what Patricia had said about Evelyn making it for Theodore on Sundays. It was Thursday, not Sunday. But maybe that didn't matter. She had the toast golden and perfect, bacon crispy, fresh fruit cut and arranged when she heard footsteps. Theodore appeared in the doorway, wearing running clothes and looking surprised to find her there. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't expect you this early. I was just going to grab coffee. I wanted to make you breakfast, Valencia said. I hope that's okay. I know you said 7, but I woke up early and thought. Theodore stared at the plate she'd prepared. His face went very still. Is something wrong? Valencia asked, worried she'd overstepped. You made French toast. Patricia mentioned your wife used to make it. I thought maybe. Valencia trailed off, seeing the emotion in his eyes. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed. I can make something else. No. Theodore's voice was rough. It's perfect. It's just, no one's made it for me since she died. Valencia watched as he sat down at the small table where they'd talked yesterday. She poured him coffee, added cream the way she'd seen in his cup before, and set the plate in front of him. For a long moment, Theodore just looked at it. Then he picked up his fork and took a bite. His eyes closed. When they opened again they were wet. It tastes like home, he said quietly. Valencia felt her own eyes prickle with tears. She turned back to the counter, giving him privacy, busying herself with cleaning up. Behind her, she heard him eat slowly, quietly. When she glanced back, his plate was clean. Thank you, Theodore said. That was the best meal I've had in 2 years. I'll make breakfast every morning, Valencia promised. And lunch and dinner. I'll cook things that make you remember what it's like to enjoy food again. Theodore studied her face. You understand loss. My husband died 4 years ago. Construction accident. 1 minute I had a partner, a future, a plan. The next minute I was a widow with 2 babies and no idea how I'd survive. Valencia met his gaze steadily. So yes, I understand loss. And I understand that cooking for someone is one way to show them they still matter. Something shifted in Theodore's expression. Not quite a smile but close. I'm glad you're here, Valencia. I'm glad you gave us a chance. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, 2 broken people beginning to recognize their reflection in someone else's pain. Then Theodore stood. I should shower and get to work. But I'll be back for lunch if that's okay. It's more than okay. It's my job. After he left, Valencia cleaned the kitchen until it sparkled. She made notes about what she'd cook for lunch, for dinner. She wanted to show Theodore Grant that his generosity hadn't been misplaced, that she would earn every dollar he paid her. But more than that, she wanted to feed his soul the way he'd rescued hers. The days settled into a rhythm. Valencia woke early and made breakfast. Theodore ate it, sometimes in silence, sometimes with quiet conversation about nothing important. She prepared lunch, which he ate in his office while working. Dinner was at 7, and twice during that first week he asked if Valencia and her children would join him. Those meals were awkward at first. Destiny and Jordan were shy around the quiet man in his big house. But Theodore was patient. He asked them about school, about their favorite subjects, about the things they liked to do. Gradually they began to relax. Jordan told Theodore about his love of building things, how his daddy used to bring home scraps of wood for him to hammer. Theodore listened with focused attention, then asked if Jordan would like to build something together sometime. Destiny talked about wanting to learn piano, how her school had a music program but the classes were full. Theodore mentioned that he had a piano no one played anymore. Maybe Destiny would like to try it? Valencia watched these interactions with a mixture of hope and caution. Theodore was being kind, generous even. But she remembered Patricia's words about his guilt, his grief. She didn't want her children to become substitutes for the daughter he'd lost. Didn't want to build something that would crumble when reality set in. But then she'd see the way Theodore's eyes lit up when Jordan showed him a drawing, or the gentle way he corrected Destiny's fingers on the piano keys, and she'd think maybe this was okay. Maybe they were all helping each other heal. On Sunday morning, 1 week after they'd moved in, Valencia made French toast again. She'd learned Theodore's patterns now, knew he went for a run at dawn and returned at 6:30. She had coffee ready, breakfast warm. When he came into the kitchen he stopped and smiled. A real smile this time. Sunday French toast, he said. Are you starting a tradition? If you'd like one, Valencia replied. Theodore sat down, and this time when she served him, he didn't cry. He just ate, savoring each bite, and when he finished he said, Would you and the kids like to come to the main house for dinner tonight? I thought we could eat in the dining room, make it special. Valencia hesitated. The dining room was formal, grand. She'd seen it but never used it. We don't have fancy clothes, she said carefully. Neither do I most days, Theodore said. Come as you are. I just don't want to eat alone on Sunday night. And there it was. The loneliness beneath the generosity. The need beneath the offer. We'd love to, Valencia said. That evening she dressed her children in their nicest outfits and walked them to the main house. Patricia had set the long dining table with simple elegance, candles burning softly. Theodore wore jeans and a button-down shirt, his hair still slightly damp from a shower. He'd ordered Chinese food. I thought we could all use a break from cooking, he explained, seeing Valencia's surprise. And I remember loving Chinese food as a kid. My mom used to let me eat it straight from the containers. So they did. Valencia, Theodore, Destiny, and Jordan sat at the grand table eating orange chicken and lo mein from paper containers, laughing when Jordan dropped noodles on the floor and Destiny got rice stuck in her hair. It was the first time Valencia had heard Theodore laugh, really laugh, and the sound filled the enormous room with something precious. After the children went back to the guest house to get ready for bed, Theodore walked Valencia to the door. The evening air was cool, stars beginning to appear overhead. Thank you, he said. For tonight. For this week. For being here. You're paying me to be here? Valencia reminded him gently. No, I'm paying you to cook. You being here, being kind, letting your children bring noise and life to this place, that's something else. That's grace. Valencia felt warmth spread through her chest. Your wife and daughter, they'd want you to be happy again. I know, Theodore said quietly. I'm starting to think maybe I can be. Not the same kind of happy but something new. Something that honors them by not staying frozen. That's all any of us can do, Valencia said. Keep moving forward even when it hurts. Theodore nodded, his eyes reflecting the porch light. Good night, Valencia. Good night, Mr. Grant. Theodore, he corrected. Please. Just Theodore. Good night, Theodore. As Valencia walked back to the guest house, she felt something stirring in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. Not quite hope, not quite happiness, but something close. Something that felt like the beginning of healing. Inside the guest house, her children were already in their pajamas, brushing their teeth. Valencia tucked them in, kissed them goodnight, and stood in the hallway between their rooms, listening to their breathing settle into sleep. They were safe. They were fed. They were home. And tomorrow she would wake up and cook breakfast for a man who was learning to live again just like she was. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but no longer terrifying. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 weeks into her new life, Valencia established routines that made the enormous estate feel manageable. She woke at 5:30, showered quickly, and reached the main kitchen by 6. Coffee first always. Then she'd plan her meals based on what Theodore needed. If he had business meetings, she prepared lighter lunches. If he'd had a particularly quiet day, she made comfort food for dinner. She learned his preferences through observation. He liked eggs scrambled soft, not hard. He preferred wheat toast to white. He drank his coffee with cream but no sugar. He loved roasted vegetables but picked around bell peppers. He had a weakness for anything with cinnamon. What struck Valencia most was how little he ate despite her efforts. She'd prepare beautiful plates, balanced and nutritious, and he'd pick at them absently, lost in thoughts she couldn't reach. Some days his lunch came back barely touched. Other times she'd find dinner cold on his desk at midnight when she came to retrieve the dishes. He's always been like this since the accident, Patricia confided one morning. They were in the kitchen together, Patricia organizing linens while Valencia prepped ingredients for the week. Mrs. Evelyn used to tease him about forgetting to eat when he worked. But she'd bring him snacks, make him stop for meals. Without her. He's cooking for ghosts, Valencia said quietly. What do you mean? He's going through the motions of living but he's not really here. Part of him is still with them. Valencia chopped carrots with steady precision. I did the same thing after Michael died. Destiny and Jordan were so young they needed me, but I felt like I was performing being a mother instead of actually being one. It took me months to come back to myself. Patricia studied her with kind eyes. What changed? Jordan got sick. Just a cold, but he had a fever and I stayed up all night with him. He was so small, so vulnerable, and I realized that if I didn't wake up and be present, I'd lose more than my husband. I'd lose the chance to really know my children. Valencia set down her knife. Theodore needs a reason to wake up. I don't know what that is yet. Maybe you'll help him find it, Patricia said. Valencia wasn't so sure. But she kept cooking, kept trying to create meals that would tempt him back to the world of the living. One afternoon during the 4th week, Valencia was making homemade pasta when Destiny and Jordan burst into the kitchen after school. They'd started at the local public school, riding the bus each morning. Theodore had offered to enroll them in private school, but Valencia had declined. She wanted them to have normal experiences, regular friends, a life that didn't revolve around wealth they didn't actually have. Mama, can we go see the koi pond? Jordan asked, already tugging at his backpack straps. After you finish your homework, Valencia said, not looking up from the dough she was kneading. But Mama. Homework first. Then pond. Jordan groaned dramatically but trudged toward the guest house. Destiny lingered, watching her mother work. "You're making the pasta by hand," she observed. "It tastes better this way. Does Mr. Grant know the difference?" Valencia paused. "I don't know. But I do, and that matters." Destiny hopped up onto a stool at the counter. "Patricia says Mr. Grant is sad because his family died." "That's true. Are you still sad that Daddy died?" The question caught Valencia off guard. She stopped kneading and really looked at her daughter. At 8 years old, Destiny was already perceptive, already watching the adults around her for clues about how to navigate the world. "Yes," Valencia said honestly. "I still miss your daddy every day. But the sadness isn't as heavy as it used to be. Time helps. And having you and Jordan helps most of all." "Does Mr. Grant have anyone to help him not be sad?" "He has Patricia. And now he has us." Destiny nodded seriously. "I think we should help him more." "What do you mean?" "I don't know yet. But I'm going to think about it." Destiny slid off the stool. "I'm going to do my homework so I can go see the fish." After her daughter left, Valencia returned to her pasta making, but her mind kept circling back to the conversation. Children saw things adults miss sometimes. Maybe Destiny was right. Maybe they needed to do more than just exist on Theodore's property. Maybe they needed to actively pull him back into life. But how? The answer came that weekend in an unexpected way. Valencia was in the garden harvesting herbs for dinner when she heard piano music drifting from the main house. She straightened, listening. It was hesitant at first, wrong notes mixed with right ones, but persistent. Someone was practicing. She followed the sound to a side entrance she rarely used and peeked inside. Through the open door of what must be the music room, she saw Theodore sitting at a grand piano with Destiny beside him on the bench. He was showing her where to place her fingers, his hands guiding hers across the keys. "Like this," he was saying, his voice patient. "Press gently. The piano responds better to gentleness than force." Destiny tried again, and this time the notes came out clearer. She beamed with pride. "Good," Theodore said, and he was smiling too. "You're a natural. Try the next measure." Valencia watched them for several minutes, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This was the most engaged she'd seen Theodore since she'd arrived. He wasn't distracted or distant. He was present, focused entirely on teaching her daughter. She must have made a sound because Theodore looked up and saw her. "I'm sorry," Valencia said quickly. "I heard the music. I didn't mean to interrupt." "You're not interrupting," Theodore assured her. Destiny asked if I'd give her a lesson. "I hope that's okay." "Of course it's okay. I just don't want her bothering you." "She's not a bother." Theodore's hand rested briefly on Destiny's shoulder. "I used to give lessons to Sophie. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed it." Destiny looked up at him with serious eyes. "Was Sophie good at piano?" "She was learning. She loved it though, the way you seem to." "I'll practice really hard," Destiny promised. "So I can be as good as she was." Something flickered across Theodore's face, pain mixed with something warmer. "I'd like that." Valencia felt tears threaten and blinked them back. "Destiny, Mr. Grant is busy. Don't overstay your welcome." "Actually," Theodore said, "if it's all right with you, I'd like to give Destiny lessons twice a week. Say Tuesday and Thursday afternoons? When she's done with homework." "That's too much," Valencia protested. "You're already doing so much for us." "It's not too much. It's..." Theodore paused, searching for words. "Something I want to do. Please." And there was that word again. Please. The billionaire asking her permission to help her child, as if she were doing him the favor instead of the other way around. "If you're sure," Valencia said carefully. "I'm sure." Destiny bounced excitedly on the piano bench. "Can I tell Jordan? He's going to be so jealous." "Why would Jordan be jealous?" Theodore asked. "Because you're teaching me something special. He'll want you to teach him something too." Theodore considered this. "What does Jordan like?" "Building things," Valencia and Destiny said together. "Then maybe I could teach him carpentry. I have a workshop in the back building that I haven't used in years. If that's something he'd be interested in?" Valencia felt overwhelmed. "Theodore, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Your children bring something good to this place. Let me give back a little of what you're all giving me." Valencia met his eyes and saw sincerity there and loneliness and something like hope. She thought about what Patricia had said, about Theodore needing a reason to wake up. Maybe her children could be part of that reason. "Okay," she agreed. "Piano for Destiny, carpentry for Jordan. But they have to keep up with schoolwork and they can't disrupt your work schedule." "Deal," Theodore said, extending his hand. Valencia shook it, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. It was the first time they'd touched beyond accidental brushes in the kitchen. The contact sent a small shock through her system that she quickly pushed away. "Thank you," she said. "No," Theodore replied, still holding her hand. "Thank you." That evening, Valencia made chicken parmesan, one of Theodore's favorites according to Patricia. She'd learned that his wife Evelyn had been vegetarian, so during their marriage Theodore had eaten mostly plant-based meals. After her death, he'd returned to meat, but Valencia noticed he still gravitated toward the vegetable dishes she prepared. She set the dining table for 4 and called everyone to dinner. The children came running, excited to eat in the big house. Theodore appeared from his office, looking tired but more alert than usual. "Mama made your favorite," Jordan announced as they sat down. "How do you know it's my favorite?" Theodore asked. "Because Patricia told us. And Mama always makes things people love when she wants them to be happy." Theodore glanced at Valencia, who blushed. "I just cook what's requested." "You cook what's needed," Theodore corrected gently. "There's a difference." They ate together, the conversation flowing more easily than it had in previous shared meals. Destiny told Theodore about her school day, how she'd gotten a perfect score on her spelling test. Jordan showed him a drawing he'd made of a house with a big garden. Theodore studied it seriously and asked questions about the design, treating Jordan's childish sketch like actual blueprints. Valencia watched this interaction and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just a job anymore. This wasn't just a rescue. This was becoming something more complicated, something that felt dangerously close to family. After dinner, as Valencia cleared the dishes, Theodore followed her into the kitchen. "Let me help," he said. "You don't need to do that." "I want to." He picked up a dish towel. "You cook, I'll dry." They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes. Through the doorway, they could hear Destiny and Jordan playing in the living room, their laughter echoing through the usually quiet house. "This place has been dead for 2 years, Theodore said quietly, not looking at her. "No music, no laughter, no life. Just me and Patricia rattling around like ghosts. But now," he paused. "Now it feels like a home again." Valencia rinsed a plate carefully. "We're happy to be here. I know you are. And I'm grateful. But Valencia, I need you to understand something." He set down the towel and turned to face her. "I'm not trying to replace my family with yours. That's not what this is." "I know," she said, though part of her had worried about exactly that. "But I am trying to figure out how to live again. And having you here, your kids here, it's reminding me that life continues even after loss. That there can be joy again even if it's different than before." Theodore's blue eyes were intense. "So when I offer to teach Destiny piano or work with Jordan in the shop, it's not because they're substitutes for Sophie. It's because they're themselves and they're wonderful, and being around them makes me want to be better." Valencia's throat tightened. "You're better. You gave us a home when we had nowhere to go. You're paying me more than I've ever earned. You're kind to my children. You're already better." "No, I'm just finally starting to try. There's a difference." He picked up the towel again. "Anyway, I wanted you to know that. So you wouldn't worry." "Thank you," Valencia said softly. They finished the dishes together, and when everything was clean, Theodore walked them back to the guest house. At the door, he crouched down to Destiny and Jordan's level. "You two are welcome in the main house anytime," he said. "The piano is yours to practice on, Destiny. And Jordan, will start on a project this weekend if you want. Maybe a birdhouse." "Really?" Jordan's eyes went wide. "Really?" After the children hugged Theodore goodnight and ran inside, Valencia lingered on the porch with him. "They're getting attached to you," she said carefully. "Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know yet. I just don't want them hurt if things change." Theodore met her gaze steadily. "I don't plan on things changing. You're not temporary, Valencia. I want you and your kids here for as long as you're willing to stay." "Why?" she asked, the question she'd asked before but still didn't fully understand the answer to. "Because you're helping me remember how to be alive," Theodore said simply. "And that's worth everything." He walked back to the main house and Valencia watched him go, her heart full of emotions she couldn't name. She was falling into something here, something bigger than a job, something that terrified and comforted her in equal measure. Inside the guest house, she tucked her children into bed and listened to their prayers. They both thanked God for Theodore, for the house, for the fish in the pond. Simple gratitude for simple things. But as Valencia lay in her own bed later, staring at the ceiling, she knew nothing about this situation was simple. She was a widow working for a widower, two broken people circling each other carefully, trying not to get hurt while simultaneously desperate for connection. And her children, innocent and open-hearted, were right in the middle of it all. She thought about Theodore's promise that they weren't temporary. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this arrangement would last, that they could build something stable here. But she'd learned the hard way that nothing was guaranteed. Life could change in an instant. People you loved could disappear without warning. All she could do was hold on tight to what she had right now and hope it would be enough. The Tuesday afternoon piano lessons became sacred time in the Grant household. Valencia would watch from the kitchen doorway as Theodore sat beside Destiny at the grand piano, his patience infinite as he guided her small fingers across the keys. Destiny absorbed every instruction with fierce concentration, determined to make him proud. "You're a good teacher," Valencia told him one evening after Destiny had gone back to the guest house. Theodore was closing the piano lid carefully, his movements reverent. "I forgot how much I loved it. Teaching, I mean. Watching someone discover music for the first time. Sophie was lucky to have you as a father." He went still at his daughter's name. Valencia held her breath, worried she'd overstepped. But then Theodore smiled, sad but genuine. "I was lucky to have her, even for the short time I did." He ran his hand along the smooth wood of the piano. "Evelyn bought this for Sophie's 3rd birthday. It's a concert grand, ridiculously expensive and completely impractical for a toddler. But Evelyn insisted our daughter should have the best instrument to learn on. She sounds like she was wonderful." She was. She could light up a room just by walking into it. Everyone loved her. Theodore's voice grew distant. "Sometimes I worry I'm forgetting things." The exact sound of her laugh. The way she'd scrunch her nose when she was thinking hard. The little details that made her her. Valencia moved closer, compelled by the rawness in his words. "You won't forget. The important things stay with you. I promise." "How do you know?" "Because I still remember exactly how Michael's hands felt when he held mine. I still hear his voice when I'm making decisions, like he's right there giving me advice. The love doesn't fade, Theodore. The grief changes, but the love stays constant." They stood together in the music room, two people who understood loss in ways they wished they didn't. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting everything in warm light. "Thank you," Theodore said quietly. "For understanding. For not telling me to move on or get over it." "I'd never say that. You don't move on from losing someone you love. You move forward with them still part of you." Theodore nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Then he cleared his throat and changed the subject. "How's Jordan liking the carpentry lessons?" Valencia smiled, grateful for the shift. "He talks about it constantly. Yesterday he tried to explain wood grain to me for 20 minutes. I have no idea what he was saying, but he was very enthusiastic about it. He's got good instincts. Natural feel for the tools." Theodore's expression softened. "We're making a bookshelf for his room. He's doing most of the work himself, with supervision. It's rough, but it's his, you know? You're giving him something his father would have given him," Valencia said, her own throat tight. "Michael was a builder. He would have taught Jordan all these things. So thank you for stepping in where he can't." "It's my honor." They looked at each other for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Patricia appeared in the doorway, breaking the spell. "Mr. Grant, you have a conference call in 10 minutes, she reminded him gently. "Right. Thank you, Patricia." Theodore moved toward the door, then paused. "Valencia, would you and the kids join me for dinner tonight? I had Patricia pick up ingredients for your grandmother's recipe. The one you mentioned last week with the chicken and rice." Valencia's heart stuttered. She'd mentioned her grandmother's arroz con pollo casually, not expecting him to remember, let alone request it. "You want me to make that? If you're willing. I'd like to try something that meant something to your family." She nodded, too moved to speak. Theodore smiled and left for his call. Patricia watched him go, then turned to Valencia with knowing eyes. "He's coming back to himself. Slowly, but it's happening. I'm glad. It's because of you, you know. You and those children of yours." Valencia shook her head. "We're just living here. He's doing the real work. Don't sell yourself short, dear. Sometimes the most important work is just showing up and being present. You're doing that beautifully." That evening, Valencia prepared her grandmother's recipe with extra care. The dish was simple, comfort food from her childhood, but every step held memories. Her abuela teaching her to season the chicken just right, to toast the rice before adding liquid, to layer the flavors with patience. As she cooked, Jordan came into the kitchen carrying a piece of wood. "Look what Mr. Grant helped me make," he said proudly, holding up a sanded plank. "It's going to be a shelf for my bookshelf." "It's beautiful, baby." Mr. Grant says I have good hands for building. Like my daddy did. Valencia's eyes stung. Your daddy would be so proud of you. Jordan set the wood on the counter carefully. Mr. Grant told me about his little girl. He said she liked to build things too. Did he? Yeah. He said she used to help him in the workshop, and she'd make houses for her dolls out of scraps. Jordan's young face was thoughtful. He got sad when he talked about her, but happy sad, you know? Like remembering made him feel both things. Valencia crouched down to her son's level. That's exactly right. When someone we love dies, we can be sad they're gone and happy we had them all at the same time. Like how you are about Daddy? Yes, exactly like that. Jordan nodded seriously. I think Mr. Grant is lonely. We should keep being his friends. Out of the mouths of children, Valencia thought. I think you're right. Now go wash up for dinner. They ate together at the kitchen table, more intimate than the formal dining room. Theodore took his first bite of the arroz con pollo and closed his eyes. This is incredible, he said. It tastes like love. Valencia laughed. That's what my abuela used to say. That the secret ingredient in any good meal is the love you put into making it. She was right. Theodore took another bite. Tell me about her. Your grandmother. So Valencia did. She told him about growing up in her abuela's house after her own mother left, about learning to cook at the old woman's side, about the way her grandmother had held the family together with strength and grace and lots of good food. She sounds amazing, Theodore said. She was. She died 6 months before I met Michael. I wish she could have known him, known the kids. She knows, Destiny piped up. She's in heaven with Daddy and with Mr. Grant's family, and they're all watching us. The simple faith of an 8-year-old. Valencia smiled and squeezed her daughter's hand. After dinner they moved to the living room. Theodore built a fire in the massive fireplace while the children spread out on the rug with coloring books. Valencia curled up in a chair with a book, but found herself watching the scene instead of reading. This felt dangerously domestic. Dangerously comfortable. Like they were a family instead of an employer and employee with children. What are you thinking about? Theodore asked quietly, settling into the chair beside hers. How easy this would be to get used to, Valencia admitted. Would that be so bad? I don't know. Maybe. She set her book aside. I've been independent for 4 years, Theodore. I've had to be. Depending on someone else, even for good things, it scares me. I understand that. After Evelyn died, people wanted to help, but I pushed them all away. Insisted I could handle everything myself. You watched the fire flicker. But I couldn't. I was drowning and I was too proud to admit it. What changed? I hit bottom. Completely fell apart one night about 6 months ago. Patricia found me in Sophie's room, surrounded by her toys, sobbing. She called my brother and they basically staged an intervention. Theodore's voice was steady despite the difficult memory. They told me I had 2 choices. Get help or watch everyone who loved me walk away because they couldn't watch me destroy myself anymore. Valencia reached out and took his hand without thinking. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid. I'm glad they didn't walk away, she said. Me too. It was the wake-up call I needed. I started therapy, started trying to live again instead of just existing. And then I had the idea to hire a cook, someone who could bring life back to this house. I didn't expect you though. What do you mean? Theodore turned to look at her directly. I thought I'd hire someone professional, someone who'd cook and leave and keep everything transactional. But then you showed up with your kids and your honesty about needing help, and you were so brave and so vulnerable at the same time, and I realized I wanted more than just a cook. I wanted someone who understood what it meant to rebuild after everything falls apart. Valencia's heart hammered in her chest. Theodore. I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable, he said quickly. I just want you to know that you're not just an employee to me. You're a friend. You and your kids, you're all friends. And friends help each other. So yes, get used to this, please. Get used to being cared for. You deserve it. Before Valencia could respond, Jordan called out from the rug. Mr. Grant, can you help me color this car? I can't stay in the lines. Theodore smiled and released Valencia's hand. Of course, buddy. He crossed to the children and knelt down beside Jordan, taking a crayon and showing him how to move slowly, carefully. Destiny scooted over to join them, and soon all 3 were coloring together, their voices soft and easy. Valencia watched them, her heart so full it ached. Theodore was right. They were friends. But somewhere along the way, her feelings had started shifting into something more complicated. Something that felt like affection that could easily become attraction if she wasn't careful. She couldn't let that happen. Theodore was her employer. He'd saved her family from homelessness. Getting involved with him romantically would complicate everything, risk everything they'd built. But as she watched him laugh at something destiny said, his whole face transforming with genuine joy, Valencia had to admit the truth to herself. It might already be too late to keep her heart safely separate. She was falling for Theodore Grant, and she had no idea what to do about it. That night, after the children were asleep, Valencia sat on the porch of the guest house and looked up at the stars. The air was cool, autumn settling in around them. In a few weeks, the leaves would turn and everything would change colors. She heard footsteps on the path and wasn't surprised when Theodore appeared, carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Thought you might like some company," he said, offering her one of the mugs. "Thank you." Valencia sipped the chocolate, rich and warm. "You didn't have to come out here. I wanted to. I like talking to you." Theodore settled into the chair beside hers. "Is that okay?" "It's okay." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking their chocolate and watching the stars. Finally, Theodore spoke. "I haven't felt this content in 2 years," he said. "Just sitting here, knowing there are people in the house who care about me, people I care about. It's a gift, Valencia. You've given me a gift. You've given us so much more. No, we've given each other what we needed. That's how the best things work." Valencia turned to look at him. In the dim porch light, his face was soft, open, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "What happens when the grief comes back?" she asked quietly. "Because it will. You'll have bad days, days when you miss them so much you can barely breathe. What happens then?" "Then I hope you'll still be here," Theodore said, "to remind me that life continues. That joy is still possible. That I'm allowed to be happy even though they're gone. Always," Valencia promised before she could stop herself. "We'll always be here." Theodore smiled, and in that moment, Valencia knew she was lost. This wasn't just a job, wasn't just friendship. This was something deeper, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. But for tonight, she pushed the complications aside and just sat with him, drinking hot chocolate under the stars, letting herself feel content for the first time in years. Tomorrow she'd worry about what it all meant. Tonight, she'd just be grateful for this unexpected connection, this small victory against the loneliness that had defined both their lives for too long. The weeks flowed into October, and with them came a shift in the rhythm of the estate. The gardens transformed into a tapestry of gold and crimson. Mornings grew crisp, requiring jackets for the walk from the guest house to the main kitchen. And Theodore, who'd been merely going through the motions of living when Valencia first arrived, began to truly participate in life again. He started eating full meals without prompting. He'd appear in the kitchen while Valencia cooked, asking questions about techniques or sharing stories about meals Evelyn used to make. He worked regular hours instead of disappearing into his office for days at a time. He laughed more, especially when Jordan would burst in covered in sawdust, excited to show off his latest creation. Patricia noticed the change too. "He's going to the office again," she told Valencia one morning while they prepared breakfast together. 3 days a week, meetings with his team. He hasn't done that since the accident. Just worked from home, barely engaged. "That's good, right?" Valencia asked, though she felt a small pang at the thought of Theodore being gone more often. "It's wonderful. He's the CEO of a technology company, you know. Makes software for hospitals. He built it from nothing and it employs over 200 people. But after Evelyn and Sophie died, he stopped caring about any of it. His brother James has been running things, keeping it all afloat." Valencia hadn't known the details of Theodore's work. He rarely talked about business, preferring to discuss books or music or Jordan's latest carpentry project. Learning he'd built a successful company added another layer to her understanding of him. That evening, when Theodore came home from the office, he seemed energized in a way she hadn't seen before. "Good day?" Valencia asked, putting the finishing touches on dinner. "Really good. We're developing new patient management software, and today we had a breakthrough on the interface design." Theodore loosened his tie, his eyes bright. "I'd forgotten how much I love the creative problem-solving part of the work. I'm glad you're engaging with it again." "Me too. Though I have to admit, I was looking forward to coming home all day." He smiled at her. "Your cooking beats takeout at the office any time." Valencia felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. She'd noticed him watching her more lately, their conversations stretching longer, his smiles coming easier when she was around. She told herself it meant nothing, that he was just grateful, just healing. But her traitorous heart hoped for more. Over dinner with the children, Theodore mentioned he had a favor to ask. "There's a charity gala next Saturday," he said. "For the children's hospital. My company is a major sponsor and I'm expected to attend. I was wondering. He paused, suddenly looking uncertain. Would you come with me, Valencia? As my guest. Valencia's fork froze halfway to her mouth. To a gala? I know it's not part of your job description. And I know it's probably not something you'd normally do. But I haven't been to one of these events since Evelyn died, and going alone feels overwhelming. If you were there, it would be easier. I don't have anything to wear to a gala, Valencia said, her mind racing. I'll take care of that. There's a personal shopper I used to use for Evelyn. She can bring options here and you can choose whatever you like. Please, Valencia. I'm asking as a friend, not as your employer. Destiny's eyes went wide. Mama, you have to go. It'll be like Cinderella. Your mama is already a princess, Theodore said, winking at Destiny. But yes, there will be dancing and fancy food and probably too many speeches. Valencia looked at him, saw the genuine plea in his eyes. He needed her there, needed the support of someone who understood his grief and wouldn't expect him to be someone he wasn't. Okay, she agreed. I'll go. Theodore's relieved smile made her decision feel right, even though the thought of attending a high society event terrified her. The personal shopper, an elegant woman named Margaret, arrived 2 days later with a rack of gowns and a selection of shoes. She set up in one of the guest rooms of the main house and called Valencia in for what she termed a fitting session. Mr. Grant gave me some parameters, Margaret explained, pulling out a deep emerald green dress. Classic, elegant, nothing too revealing. But I brought variety so you can choose what feels right. Valencia tried on dress after dress, feeling like a child playing dress-up. Most were too fancy, too expensive looking, too much. But then Margaret pulled out a gown in rich burgundy and Valencia's breath caught. Try this one, Margaret urged. The dress was stunning but not overstated. The bodice fitted perfectly, and the skirt flowed to the floor in soft waves. The color brought out the warmth in Valencia's brown skin and made her dark eyes shine. That's the one, Destiny declared from her perch on the bed, where she'd been invited to watch. You look beautiful, Mama. Margaret brought shoes, simple heels and black. Then she sat Valencia down and did her makeup, subtle and natural, enhancing rather than covering. Finally, she swept Valencia's hair up into an elegant twist. When it was all done, Valencia looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked sophisticated, polished. Like someone who belonged at a gala. Mr. Grant is going to lose his mind, Margaret said with satisfaction. Valencia blushed. It's not like that. We're friends. How? Margaret said, her tone suggesting she didn't believe that for a second. Well, friend or not, you look spectacular. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. Valencia dressed carefully in the guest house while Patricia watched the children. Her hands shook as she fastened her earrings, simple pearls that had belonged to her grandmother. You're nervous? Patricia observed. Terrified, Valencia admitted. I don't know how to act at these things. What if I use the wrong fork or say something stupid? You'll be fine. Just be yourself. That's all Mr. Grant wants. But what if herself wasn't enough? What if she embarrassed Theodore in front of his business associates and society friends? A knock on the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Patricia answered it and Theodore stepped inside. He'd been getting ready at the main house and Valencia hadn't seen him yet in his tuxedo. He looked devastating. The formal wear fit him perfectly, emphasizing his lean build and broad shoulders. His hair was styled neatly and he'd shaved, making him look younger and more approachable. But it was his expression when he saw Valencia that made her breath stop. His eyes widened and for a long moment he simply stared. Valencia, he said finally, his voice rough. You look absolutely stunning. Thank you. You look very handsome yourself. They stood there looking at each other while Patricia and the children watched with barely concealed delight. Finally, Theodore offered his arm. Shall we? Valencia took it, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath the expensive fabric. Let's do this before I lose my nerve. In the car, a sleek town car with a driver, Theodore reached over and took her hand. Thank you for doing this, he said. I know it's outside your comfort zone. Way outside, Valencia agreed. But I'm glad to help. You've done so much for us. This is the least I can do. It's not payment, Valencia. I want you there because I enjoy your company. Because you make everything better. He squeezed her hand gently. Just stay close to me tonight, okay? We'll get through it together. The gala was held at a downtown hotel ballroom, a space dripping with crystal chandeliers and elegance. As they walked in, people turned to look. Valencia heard whispers, saw curious glances. That's Theodore Grant. I heard he's been a recluse since his wife died. Who is that with him? She's beautiful. Must be someone new. Good for him. Theodore kept Valencia close, his hand at the small of her back as they navigated the crowd. He introduced her to business associates and board members, describing her simply as, "My good friend Valencia." No one questioned it. Everyone was too polite, too aware of Theodore's loss and his recent absence from society. They accepted Valencia's presence with smiles and small talk. The evening passed in a blur of conversations Valencia barely tracked. She was too aware of Theodore beside her, his occasional touch guiding her through the room, the way he included her in every discussion, making sure she felt comfortable. When dinner was served, they sat at a table with Theodore's brother James and his wife Michelle. James looked like Theodore but with lighter hair and a perpetual smile. "So you're the famous Valencia," James said warmly. "Theo hasn't stopped talking about you and your kids." "I'm not sure about famous," Valencia said, blushing. "Trust me, in our family you're famous. You've accomplished what none of us could. You got him to start living again." Theodore shot his brother a look, but James just grinned. Michelle, elegant in a silver gown, leaned toward Valencia. "It's true. We were so worried about him. But now when we talk he actually sounds happy. That's because of you." "I just cook for him," Valencia protested. "You do a lot more than that," Theodore said quietly. Their eyes met across the table and something electric passed between them. Valencia felt her pulse quicken, felt the moment stretch and deepen. This was more than friendship. They both knew it. The question was what they'd do about it. The moment was broken by the start of speeches. Valencia sat through presentations about the Children's Hospital, about fundraising goals and new wings being built. Theodore listened attentively, but his hand found hers under the table, their fingers intertwining. When the speeches ended and music started, couples moved to the dance floor. Theodore stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me?" he asked. Valencia's heart hammered. "I'm not very good at formal dancing." "Neither am I anymore. We'll figure it out together." He led her to the floor and pulled her into his arms. They swayed to the music, not quite in perfect rhythm but close enough. Valencia was hyper-aware of every point of contact. His hand at her waist, her hand on his shoulder, their other hands clasped between them. "Thank you for being here," Theodore murmured, close to her ear. "This night would have been unbearable without you. I'm glad I came." They danced in silence for a moment and then Theodore said, "Valencia, I need to tell you something." Her heart stuttered. "Okay." "These past few months, having you at the estate, getting to know you and your children, it's changed everything for me. You've changed everything. And I know this complicates our working relationship and I know the timing might not be right, but I need you to know that I care about you. More than I probably should, more than is professional, but I can't help it." Valencia looked up at him, saw the vulnerability and hope in his eyes. Her own feelings surged up, threatening to overwhelm her. "I care about you too," she whispered. "So much it scares me." "It scares me too. But maybe that's okay. Maybe being scared means we're healing, that we're ready to risk our hearts again. Or maybe it means we're about to make a huge mistake." "Maybe," Theodore acknowledged. "But I'd rather take the risk than spend the rest of my life wondering what if." Before Valencia could respond, the song ended. They stepped apart, but Theodore kept hold of her hand, reluctant to let go completely. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. Valencia was aware of dancing more, of talking to more people, of Theodore's constant presence beside her. But mostly she was aware of the shift between them, the acknowledgement of feelings that had been building for weeks. On the drive home, they sat close together in the back of the town car, not quite touching but near enough to feel each other's warmth. "What happens now?" Valencia asked softly. "I don't know," Theodore admitted. "But I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to act like you're just my cook when you're so much more than that. I'm still your employee. That power dynamic. I know. We have to be careful, we have to be smart about this. But Valencia, I've been dead inside for 2 years and you brought me back to life. I can't ignore that. I won't." When they arrived home, Theodore walked her to the guest house door. The porch light cast a soft glow, and crickets sang in the autumn night. "I'll understand if you need time to think about this," Theodore said. "If you want to keep things professional, I'll respect that. Your job is safe regardless. So are your children's lessons, your housing, everything. Nothing changes unless you want it to." Valencia looked at him, this man who'd rescued her family and was somehow equally in need of rescuing. She thought about the risks, the complications. But she also thought about how he made her laugh, how patient he was with her children, How alive she felt when they talked. I don't want things to stay the same, she said. I just need to figure out what different looks like. Give me some time? All the time you need. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. The gesture was old-fashioned, courtly, and it made Valencia's knees weak. Good night, Valencia. Good night, Theodore. She watched him walk back to the main house, his figure slowly disappearing into the shadows. Then she went inside, where Patricia was asleep on the couch and the children were sleeping soundly in their beds. Valencia got ready for bed mechanically, her mind replaying the evening. Theodore's confession. Her own admission of feelings. The promise of something more hovering between them like a question waiting to be answered. She'd sworn after Michael died that she wouldn't risk her heart again. That she'd focus on her children and her own survival. But Theodore had slipped past her defenses with his quiet grief and genuine kindness. He'd shown her that love didn't die with loss, that hearts could heal and hope could return. The question was she brave enough to take the next step? As Valencia finally drifted off to sleep, she didn't have an answer. But for the first time in years, she was willing to consider the possibility. Valencia woke the next morning to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a note in Theodore's distinctive handwriting. No pressure about last night. Take whatever time you need. But if you're willing, I'd love your help with something today. The garden needs attention before winter and I thought we could work on it together. The kids can help too. It would mean a lot to me. Theodore. Valencia smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. He was giving her space while simultaneously inviting her into something meaningful. The garden had been Evelyn's passion, Patricia had told her. Restoring it would be both literal and symbolic. After breakfast, Valencia dressed in old jeans and a comfortable sweater, braided her hair back, and walked with Destiny and Jordan to the main house. They found Theodore in the garden, already wearing work gloves and surrounded by tools. He looked up when they approached, his face lighting up. He'd changed from his usual business casual into worn jeans and a faded blue t-shirt that made him look younger, more approachable. You came, he said, sounding genuinely relieved. Of course we came. You said you needed help. I do. This garden was Evelyn's pride and joy, and I've let it go to ruin. I want to bring it back before the first frost. He handed out gloves to everyone. I thought we'd start with clearing the dead plants and weeding. Then maybe plant some bulbs for spring. They worked together throughout the morning, pulling weeds and clearing debris. Theodore told stories about Evelyn as they worked, how she'd spend entire weekends out here, how she'd known every plant by name, how she taught Sophie to identify different flowers. She always said gardens were metaphors for life, Theodore said, digging up a patch of stubborn weeds. You have to tend them regularly, pull out the bad stuff before it takes over, plant seeds for the future even when you can't see the results yet. She sounds like she was wise, Valencia said. She was. I didn't always appreciate it at the time. I was too busy with work, too focused on building the company. I thought we had all the time in the world. His voice caught. That's the hardest part. Knowing I wasted time I can never get back. Valencia sat back on her heels looking at him. You didn't waste it, Theodore. You were building a future for your family. You couldn't have known. I know that logically. But emotionally. He shook his head. I still regret every missed dinner, every weekend I chose work over being present. Destiny, who'd been listening while she pulled weeds nearby, spoke up. My daddy had to work a lot too. But Mama says he did it because he loved us and wanted to take care of us. That's what you were doing too, Mr. Grant. Theodore's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Destiny. That's very kind of you to say. It's true, the little girl insisted. You're a good daddy. Sophie probably knows that. Valencia watched Theodore struggle with his emotions, watched him accept comfort from her 8-year-old daughter. This man who could have been distant and cold had instead opened his heart to her children, and they were responding with the pure empathy only kids possessed. Jordan, covered in dirt, came running over with something in his hands. Look what I found. Is it treasure? Theodore examined the object. His expression shifted, becoming tender. It's a garden marker. See. It says, Sophie's sunflowers on it. She planted sunflowers here 2 summers ago. She'd come out every morning to check if they'd grown. Can we plant more sunflowers? Jordan asked. So when Sophie looks down from heaven, she'll see them? Theodore's face crumpled. He pulled Jordan into a hug, then reached out and drew Destiny in too. Valencia watched, her own eyes streaming, as this broken man held her children and let himself grieve openly. Yes, Theodore said when he could speak again. We'll plant sunflowers. And daisies because those were her favorites too. We'll fill this whole garden with flowers Sophie would have loved. They worked until late afternoon, transforming the neglected garden into something that showed promise. Theodore ordered pizza for dinner, and they ate it sitting on a blanket in the garden, surrounded by their work. This was my favorite part, Theodore said, looking around. Evelyn would insist we have picnics out here even if it was just pizza or sandwiches. She said food always tasted better outside. She was right, Valencia agreed, taking a bite of her slice. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Theodore turned to Valencia. Thank you for today. For helping me do this. I couldn't have faced it alone. You're not alone anymore, Valencia said quietly. Their eyes held for a long moment, full of unspoken understanding. Then Destiny yawned dramatically and the spell broke. I think someone's ready for bed, Valencia said with a laugh. I'm not tired, Destiny protested even as she yawned again. Theodore stood and helped Valencia pack up the picnic supplies. As they walked back toward the guest house, Jordan's hand in his and Destiny leaning against Valencia, they looked like a family. And maybe Valencia thought they were becoming one. At the guest house door, Theodore paused. Valencia, about what I said last night? We don't have to talk about it now, she said gently. I know. But I want you to know I meant it. Every word. And I'm willing to wait as long as you need. Valencia's heart swelled. Thank you. For being patient. For understanding that this is complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. We're two people who care about each other. Everything else we can figure out together. After he left, Valencia got the children ready for bed. They were exhausted from the day outside, falling asleep almost immediately. Valencia stood in the doorway between their rooms, watching them breathe peacefully. Her phone buzzed. A text from Theodore, I can't stop thinking about you. Valencia's fingers trembled as she typed back, I can't stop thinking about you either. Is that a bad thing? She considered the question. Considered her fears, her responsibilities, her determination to protect herself and her children. But she also considered the way Theodore looked at her, the way he'd opened his heart to her family, the way being around him made her feel alive again. No, she typed. It's not bad. It's terrifying but not bad. Terrifying is okay. We can be terrified together. Valencia smiled, settling onto her bed with her phone. They texted back and forth for an hour, sharing small things. Theodore told her about his favorite books, his love of old movies, his terrible singing voice. Valencia told him about her dreams of one day opening a restaurant, about missing her grandmother, about how Destiny wanted to be a veterinarian and Jordan wanted to build bridges. You're an amazing mother, Theodore wrote. The way you've raised them, kept them steady through loss and hardship, it's incredible. I just do my best. Some days that's not very good. Your best is more than enough. They're wonderful kids because of you. When they finally said goodnight, Valencia lay in the dark feeling something she hadn't felt in years, hopeful. Not just about survival or getting through the next day, but about the possibility of real happiness. Of love. It was too soon to call it that. Too soon to make promises or plans. But the seed was planted, and like the bulbs they'd put in the garden that day, it would grow if given time and care. Valencia drifted off to sleep thinking about Theodore's smile, his kindness, his hands gentle in the dirt as he planted flowers for a daughter who would never see them bloom. He was a good man. A man worthy of love. And maybe, just maybe, she was brave enough to love him. The following weeks passed in a rhythm that felt both comfortable and charged with possibility. Theodore and Valencia danced around their mutual attraction with careful politeness. He'd find excuses to be in the kitchen while she cooked. She'd linger after serving meals to talk about nothing important. They'd exchange glances that held more weight than words. But they also maintained boundaries. No more late-night texts. No physical contact beyond accidental brushes. They were feeling their way forward cautiously, aware that rushing could ruin everything. The children, oblivious to the adult complications, settled deeper into their new life. Destiny's piano skills improved rapidly, her natural talent emerging with Theodore's patient instruction. Jordan's bookshelf neared completion, each carefully sanded and joined piece a testament to his growing confidence. One Thursday afternoon, Destiny's school called. She'd been invited to participate in the upcoming winter play, a production of A Christmas Carol. The drama teacher thought Destiny would be perfect for the role of Tiny Tim's sister, a speaking part with a short solo. Can I do it, Mama? Destiny asked that evening, bouncing with excitement. Please? Rehearsals are after school Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the play is the weekend before Christmas. Of course you can, Valencia said, thrilled to see her daughter so animated. But there's a problem, Destiny continued, her face falling. We need costumes. And the school doesn't have a budget for them. All the parents have to make or buy costumes for their kids. Valencia's stomach sank. She was making good money now, but buying or making a Victorian-era costume was beyond her skills and budget. She opened her mouth to figure out a solution when Theodore spoke up from where he'd been listening. I have an idea, he said. My mother was a seamstress. After she passed, I kept all her sewing equipment and fabric stash. It's in storage in the attic. Maybe we could find something there? And Valencia, if you'd be willing, maybe we could work on the costume together? I'm terrible at sewing, but I can follow instructions. Destiny's eyes went wide. Really? You'd help make my costume? I'd be honored to. That weekend, they ventured into the attic. It was a treasure trove of fabric and notions, carefully organized in labeled bins. Theodore's mother had clearly been talented, her collection extensive. She made all my school clothes when I was young, Theodore said, running his hand over a bolt of green velvet. Taught me to appreciate quality craftsmanship. Valencia sorted through the fabric, her practiced eye identifying possibilities. She found a dark blue fabric that would work perfectly, along with lace and trim that would make the costume authentic. This is perfect, she said. Are you sure it's okay to use? My mother would have loved knowing her materials were being used for something meaningful. Please take whatever you need. They set up a workspace in the guest house living room. Valencia had basic sewing skills from her grandmother's teaching, but she'd never attempted anything as complex as a Victorian costume. Theodore pulled up tutorials on his laptop, and together they figured it out. Working side by side, cutting and pinning and stitching, created an intimacy that felt different from their other interactions. Their hands would brush as they passed scissors or pins. They'd lean close to examine seams, their shoulders touching. The domestic simplicity of the task somehow made the attraction between them harder to ignore. I like this, Theodore said one evening after Destiny had tried on the partially completed dress and gone to bed. Creating something together. It feels good. It does, Valencia agreed, snipping a thread. I've forgotten what it's like to work on a project with another adult. To have someone to share the load with. Is that what you miss most? About being married? Valencia considered the question. I miss a lot of things. Having someone to talk to at the end of the day. Someone to make decisions with. Someone who knows my children as well as I do and loves them just as much. She set down her sewing. But mostly I miss not being alone in my own life, you know? Having a partner to experience things with. I understand that completely. Theodore's voice was soft. Evelyn and I used to stay up late talking about everything. Our dreams, our fears, stupid things that happened during the day. I miss having someone who cares about the minutiae of my life. What was your favorite thing about her? Theodore smiled. Her laugh. It was this wonderful, uninhibited sound. She'd throw her head back and just let it out, not caring who heard or what they thought. She taught me not to take everything so seriously. She sounds wonderful. She was. But Valencia. He turned to face her directly. I'm not trying to replace her with you. I want you to know that. I know. And I'm not trying to replace Michael with you. But maybe we don't have to replace what we lost. Maybe we can build something new that honors our past but isn't limited by it. Theodore reached out and took her hand. I'd like that. This time Valencia didn't pull away. She let their fingers intertwine, let herself feel the warmth of his skin against hers. It felt right. Scary but right. The night of the school play arrived with surprising speed. Valencia had finished Destiny's costume the week before, and her daughter looked perfect in the dark blue dress with its lace collar and cuffs. You look like you stepped out of a history book, Jordan said admiringly. Theodore had arranged for all of them to attend, including Patricia. They sat in the school auditorium, 3 rows from the front, as parents and students filled the seats around them. Valencia was nervous for Destiny, knowing how much her daughter wanted to do well. When the lights dimmed and the play began, she gripped the armrests of her seat tightly. Destiny was wonderful. She delivered her lines with confidence, her solo clear and sweet. When she took her bow with the rest of the cast, Valencia had tears streaming down her face. Theodore reached over and took her hand, squeezing gently. The gesture felt natural, easy. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. After the play they went backstage to congratulate Destiny. She was glowing with pride, accepting hugs from her classmates and teacher. You were amazing, Valencia told her, pulling her daughter close. The best one up there, Jordan added loyally. Theodore crouched down to Destiny's level. I'm so proud of you. You worked hard and it showed. Your performance was beautiful. Destiny hugged him impulsively. Thank you for helping with my costume. It was perfect. Over Destiny's head, Theodore's eyes met Valencia's. Something passed between them, warm and tender. A recognition that they were building something here, something that involved all of them. On the way home, the children chatted excitedly in the backseat. Theodore drove while Valencia sat beside him, watching the streetlights flash by. Thank you for being there tonight, she said quietly. It meant a lot to Destiny. To all of us. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. Watching her up there, so brave and talented, it reminded me why it's important to show up for the people we care about. You're good at that. Showing up. I'm trying to be. For a long time I wasn't. I was physically present but emotionally absent. But you've taught me that presence means more than just being in the room. It means engagement, attention, caring. When they reached the estate, Theodore walked them to the guest house. The children ran ahead, eager to change out of their dress clothes. Valencia paused on the porch with Theodore. Do you want to come in for coffee? She asked, then immediately second-guessed herself. Was that too much? Too intimate? But Theodore smiled. I'd love that. They sat at the kitchen table while the children got ready for bed, drinking coffee and talking about the play. When Destiny and Jordan came to say goodnight, they both hugged Theodore as naturally as they hugged Valencia. After they'd gone to their rooms, Theodore and Valencia moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the couch. Can I ask you something? Theodore said. Of course. What do you want, Valencia? Not what you think you should want or what's practical, but what your heart wants. If you could have anything, what would it be? Valencia set down her coffee cup, considering. I want stability for my kids. A real home, not just a temporary place. I want to do work that matters, that uses my skills fully. And she paused, gathering courage. I want partnership. Someone to share my life with, someone who loves my children and who I can love back. I want what I had with Michael, but I want it to be different too. Built on who I am now, not who I was then. And is that something you can imagine with me? Theodore's voice was careful, hopeful. Valencia looked at him, this man who'd saved her family and was letting them save him in return. Yes, she admitted. I can imagine it. But I'm still scared. What scares you most? Losing again. Depending on someone and having them taken away. Letting my kids get attached and then having to explain why you're gone. Valencia's voice cracked. I barely survived losing Michael. I don't know if I could do it again. Theodore moved closer on the couch, taking her hands in his. I can't promise I'll never leave, Valencia. Life is uncertain and we both know that too well. But I can promise that I'll show up every single day I'm able to. That I'll love you and your kids with everything I have. That I'll never take a moment for granted. That has to be enough because it's all any of us can really promise. Tears slid down Valencia's cheeks. When did you get so wise? When I lost everything and had to figure out what actually matters. And what matters is this. Right here. You, me, Destiny, Jordan. Us building something real together. Theodore, Valencia started, but he placed a gentle finger on her lips. You don't have to say anything yet. I just needed you to know where I stand. Where my heart is. He smiled softly. Now I should probably go before I say something even more terrifying. Valencia walked him to the door, reluctant to let the evening end. On the threshold, Theodore cupped her face in his hands. Thank you for letting me be part of tonight. Part of your family's joy. Thank you for wanting to be. They stood close, the air between them charged with possibility. Theodore leaned in slowly, giving Valencia time to pull back. When she didn't, his lips met hers in a kiss that was gentle, tentative, perfect. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. I've wanted to do that for weeks, Theodore confessed. I've wanted you to, Valencia replied. He kissed her once more, soft and sweet, then stepped back. Good night, Valencia. Good night. She watched him walk back to the main house, her fingers touching her lips where his had been. Inside, she could hear her children's soft breathing from their rooms. Her heart felt full to bursting with hope and fear and something that felt dangerously close to love. Things were changing. They'd crossed a line tonight and there was no going back. Valencia just had to trust that moving forward was the right choice. As she got ready for bed, her phone buzzed with a text from Theodore, Sweet dreams. And in case I wasn't clear, I'm falling in love with you. Valencia's hands trembled as she typed her response. I'm falling in love with you too. And that terrifies me. We can be terrified together. I'm not going anywhere. She believed him. And that, more than anything, was the scariest part. November brought cooler temperatures and the approach of the holidays. The estate grounds turned gold and russet, leaves carpeting the paths between the main house and guest quarters. Valencia found herself navigating not just the physical space but the emotional terrain of her developing relationship with Theodore. They hadn't defined what they were to each other. Not officially. But things had shifted after the night of the play. Theodore would greet her with soft kisses in the morning when the children weren't watching. They'd hold hands during their evening walks through the garden. He'd pull her close on the couch after dinner, and she'd rest her head on his shoulder while they talked. It felt natural. It felt right. And that scared Valencia more than she wanted to admit. Patricia noticed the change and approved wholeheartedly. "I haven't seen Mr. Grant this happy in years," she told Valencia one morning. "And you're glowing, dear. Love looks good on you both." "It's not love," Valencia protested weakly. "It's too soon for that." Patricia just smiled knowingly and went back to her dusting. The children, however, were less subtle in their observations. "Are you and Mr. Grant boyfriend and girlfriend?" Jordan asked one evening over dinner. Valencia nearly choked on her water. "What makes you ask that?" "Because you smile all the time now. And he smiles at you. And you hold hands when you think we're not looking." Destiny nodded sagely. "It's obvious. Are you going to get married?" "Slow down," Valencia said, her cheeks burning. "Mr. Grant and I are friends. Very good friends. But marriage is a big step that requires a lot of thought and time." "But you like him, right?" Destiny pressed. Like him?" Valencia sighed. There was no hiding from her perceptive children. "Yes, I like him. He's a wonderful man. But we're taking things slow because we both lost people we loved, and we want to be sure we're ready for something new." "I think you're ready," Jordan said with the certainty of a 6-year-old. "And I think Mr. Grant is ready too. He's not sad anymore. Not like when we first came." That night, after the children were asleep, Valencia texted Theodore. "The kids know. They asked if we're boyfriend and girlfriend." His response came quickly. "What did you tell them?" "That we're very good friends taking things slow." "Accurate. Though I'd be okay with upgrading to boyfriend status if you're willing." Valencia smiled at her phone. "That feels very high school. Then what do you want to call this?" "What we are to each other." She thought about it, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Partners? People who care deeply about each other and are figuring out what comes next." "I like that. Though for the record, I already know what I want to come next." "What's that?" "Everything. A life with you. A future together. Your kids becoming my kids. Waking up next to you every morning. All of it." Valencia's breath caught. It was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. But it was also exactly what she wanted, even if she wasn't ready to admit it yet. "Theodore. I know too soon. I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just being honest about where my heart is. I appreciate your honesty. And I want those things too. I'm just slower at trusting it. Then we'll go at your pace. Always." The weekend before Thanksgiving, Theodore suggested a trip. "There's a cabin my family owns about 2 hours from here on a lake. I thought maybe we could all go for the weekend. Get away from everything, just relax." Valencia hesitated. A weekend trip felt significant, like taking their relationship public even though they'd been trying to keep things private. "The kids would love it," Theodore continued. "There's fishing, hiking trails, a fireplace. We could cook together, play games, just be a family for a few days." That word, family. It hung in the air between them, full of promise and fear. "Okay," Valencia agreed. "Let's do it." They left Friday after school, piling into Theodore's SUV with overnight bags and groceries. The drive took them into the mountains, the landscape transforming from suburb to forest. Destiny and Jordan pressed their faces to the windows, excited by the changing scenery. The cabin was beautiful. Made of logs and stone, it sat right on the water's edge, surrounded by towering pines. The interior was cozy without being cramped, with a large living area, a full kitchen, and 3 bedrooms upstairs. "This is amazing," Valencia said, taking in the view of the lake through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "My grandparents built it 50 years ago. My family spent every summer here when I was growing up." Theodore set down the bags and moved to stand beside her. "I haven't been back since before the accident." It felt like time. That evening, they cooked dinner together while the children explored the cabin's nooks and crannies. Theodore taught Jordan how to start a fire in the stone fireplace. Valencia and Destiny made s'mores, even though they'd already had dessert. After the kids went to bed, exhausted from excitement, Theodore and Valencia sat on the deck overlooking the lake. The night was cool, Stars scattered across the black sky like diamonds. Theodore had brought out blankets and they wrapped up together on the bench swing. "Thank you for coming here with me," Theodore said. "I wasn't sure I could face this place again. But with you it feels possible." "Did you come here with Evelyn?" "Every summer. And twice we brought Sophie, though she was too young to remember." His voice was steady, not breaking the way it once had when he talked about his family. "The last time we were here, Evelyn was pregnant with Sophie. We sat right here and talked about our dreams for our family, all the summers we'd spend teaching our daughter to fish and swim and love the outdoors. I'm sorry you didn't get those summers." "Me too. But maybe I can have different summers now. With different people I love." Valencia turned to look at him. "Do you love me, Theodore?" "Yes." No hesitation, no doubt. "I love you, Valencia. I love your strength and your kindness. I love the way you care for your children. I love your cooking and your laugh and the way you challenge me to be better. I love all of it, all of you." Tears spilled down Valencia's cheeks. "I love you too. I've been trying to protect myself, but I can't help it. You've become so important to me, to us." Theodore cupped her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "Then stop trying not to. Love me. Let me love you back. Let's be brave enough to build something real." "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know. So am I. But I'm more scared of missing this chance. Of letting fear keep me from the happiness that's right in front of me." He kissed her then, deep and full of promise. Valencia kissed him back, letting herself fall completely into the moment, into the feeling, into the love she'd been fighting. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Theodore rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he said. "Not in a separate bedroom. Stay with me." Valencia's heart raced. It was another line to cross, another step forward. But she was tired of holding back, tired of protecting herself at the expense of her own happiness. "Okay," she agreed. "I'll stay." They moved inside quietly, checking on the sleeping children before retiring to the master bedroom. They made love slowly, tenderly, two people who'd both experienced loss and were choosing to risk love again. It wasn't perfect or practiced. It was real and vulnerable and beautiful. Afterward, lying in Theodore's arms, Valencia felt more at peace than she had in years. "I want this," she said softly. "A life with you. A future. All of it." Theodore's arms tightened around her. "You have me. For as long as you'll have me, you have me." They fell asleep tangled together, and when Valencia woke in the early morning light, she didn't panic or regret. She simply smiled and burrowed closer to the man she loved. The rest of the weekend passed in a haze of happiness. They hiked forest trails as a family, Theodore carrying Jordan on his shoulders when little legs got tired. They fished off the dock, Destiny squealing with delight when she caught her first fish. They cooked meals together, played board games, told stories around the fire. It was normal and wonderful and everything Valencia hadn't dared to hope for. On Sunday evening, as they packed to leave, Jordan approached Theodore with his favorite stuffed dog. "I want you to have this," he said, holding it out. "To remember us when we're not here." Theodore crouched down, clearly moved. "Buddy, I could never forget you. But are you sure? This is your special dog." "I'm sure. You're my special person now. You're like my dad." Theodore's eyes filled with tears. He pulled Jordan into a tight hug. "And you're like my son. I love you, Jordan." "I love you too." Destiny, not to be left out, joined the hug. "I love you three, Mr. Grant." "I love you three too, Destiny. Both of you so much." Valencia watched from the doorway, her own tears flowing freely. This was it. This was the family they were building together, born from loss but growing into something beautiful. On the drive home, the children fell asleep in the back seat. Theodore reached over and took Valencia's hand. "Move into the main house with me," he said quietly. "You and the kids. Stop living in the guest house like employees. Be my family officially." Valencia's breath caught. "Theodore, that's a huge step." "I know. But we're already a family in every way that matters. I just want it to be official. I want to wake up with you every morning, have dinner together every night, tuck the kids in as a team. I want all of it, Valencia. Do you?" She looked back at her sleeping children, then at Theodore's hopeful face. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from desperation to love, from loss to healing. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want that too. Let's do it." Theodore's smile could have lit up the night. "Really? Really? We'll move in after Thanksgiving. Give us time to prepare the kids, to make it a smooth transition. Whatever you need." "God, Valencia, you've made me so happy." "You've made me happy too. Happier than I thought I'd ever be again." They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, hands clasped, hearts full. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but no longer frightening. Because they'd face it together, their chosen family strong and whole. When they reached home, Theodore helped carry the sleeping children to their beds, kissing each forehead gently before leaving them to rest. At the guest house door he pulled Valencia close. "I can't wait for this to be our home," he said. "All of us under one roof." "Me neither," Valencia replied, meaning it with her whole heart. As she got ready for bed, Valencia reflected on how far they'd come. 3 months ago she'd been desperate and alone, facing homelessness with 2 children to protect. Now she was loved, secure, and looking forward to a future that felt bright with possibility. She'd taken a risk answering Theodore's job posting. She'd taken an even bigger risk opening her heart to him. But both risks had paid off in ways she never could have imagined. Sometimes, Valencia thought as she drifted off to sleep, the scariest leaps led to the softest landings. And sometimes, when you lost everything, you found exactly what you needed in the most unexpected place. Thanksgiving morning dawned crisp and clear. Valencia woke early in the guest house, but for the last time. Tomorrow they'd officially move into the main house as a family. The thought filled her with equal parts excitement and nervousness. Theodore had insisted on hosting Thanksgiving dinner, inviting his brother James and James's wife Michelle, along with Patricia and her husband of 40 years, George. It would be the first holiday gathering the main house had seen since Evelyn and Sophie died. "Are you sure about this?" Valencia had asked earlier in the week. "Hosting a big meal, having everyone here, it might be overwhelming." "That's exactly why I want to do it," Theodore had replied. "I've hidden from holidays for 2 years. It's time to start living them again. And I want to do it with you and the kids by my side." Now, as Valencia prepared the turkey and side dishes in the large kitchen, she felt Theodore's presence everywhere. He'd helped her shop for ingredients, picked out the perfect wine, set the dining table with care. He wanted everything to be right. Destiny and Jordan were upstairs getting dressed in the nice outfits Theodore had bought them. He tried to be subtle about it, but Valencia knew he'd gone shopping specifically for this occasion. The gesture touched her deeply. "You didn't have to buy them new clothes," she'd said when he'd presented the shopping bags. "I wanted to. They're part of this family now. Let me spoil them a little." Patricia arrived early to help with final preparations. She hugged Valencia tightly and whispered, "This is going to be wonderful. The house needs this. He needs this." James and Michelle arrived at noon, bringing flowers and wine and excited energy. James looked so much like Theodore that Valencia did a double take, though his perpetual smile was distinctly his own. "So you're the miracle worker," James said, pulling Valencia into a hug before she could protest. "The woman who brought my brother back from the dead." "James, don't be dramatic," Theodore chided, but he was smiling. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being accurate." James held Valencia at arm's length, studying her. "You're exactly what he described. Beautiful, kind, and clearly too good for him." "Hey," Theodore protested, but Michelle laughed. "He's not wrong," she said, kissing Valencia's cheek in greeting. "But we're so happy to meet you properly. And these must be Destiny and Jordan." The children had come downstairs, shy but polite. Michelle charmed them immediately, asking about school and their interests. Within minutes, Destiny was showing her the piano skills Theodore had taught her. Patricia and George arrived next, George moving slowly with his cane but smiling warmly. "Young lady," he said to Valencia, "I hear you've been performing miracles in this kitchen. Can't wait to taste your cooking." They gathered in the living room for appetizers, conversation flowing easily. Valencia watched Theodore interact with his family, saw how relaxed he was, how present. This was the man he'd been before tragedy struck, the version of himself he'd lost and was now reclaiming. Over dinner, James raised his glass. "I want to make a toast. To Theodore, who's finally rejoining the land of the living. To Valencia, whose kindness and courage made that possible. To Destiny and Jordan, who've brought joy back to this house. And to new beginnings, which we all deserve." "Hear, hear," everyone echoed, glasses clinking. As they ate, sharing stories and laughter, Valencia felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was family, imperfect and beautiful and real. She'd been so afraid to hope for something like this again, but here it was, spread out before her like a feast. After dessert, while the children played in the next room and the adults lingered over coffee, James leaned toward Theodore. "So," he said, his tone teasing but genuine, "when are you going to make this official? When do we get to welcome Valencia as our sister-in-law?" Theodore's eyes went wide and Valencia felt heat flood her cheeks. "James, Michelle hissed. That's not appropriate. Why not? We're all thinking it. James looked between Theodore and Valencia. You're clearly in love. The kids are already calling this home. What are you waiting for? Theodore set down his coffee cup carefully. James, this isn't really the time. Actually, Valencia interrupted, surprising herself, it's a fair question. Everyone turned to look at her. She met Theodore's gaze steadily. We haven't talked about marriage because we've been focused on taking things one step at a time, Valencia said. But I think we both know where this is heading. At least, I hope we do. Theodore's expression softened. Valencia, you know I want to marry you. I've wanted that almost since the day we met. But I didn't want to pressure you, didn't want to move faster than you were comfortable with. And I appreciate that. But I think I'm ready now. Ready to stop being scared, ready to commit fully to this. Valencia's voice trembled slightly, but she pushed through. I love you, Theodore. I love the life we're building. And yes, I want to make it official. The room went silent. Then Theodore stood, crossed to where Valencia sat, and dropped to one knee. Then let me do this properly, he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Maybe this is it. He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. Valencia Torres, you came into my life when I'd given up on everything that mattered. You showed me that love doesn't end with loss, that families can be rebuilt, that joy is still possible even after unbearable pain. You and your children have given me a reason to live again, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how grateful I am. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Valencia's face. Around them, she was dimly aware of Michelle crying, of James grinning, of Patricia clutching George's hand. But mostly she was aware of Theodore's hopeful eyes, of the love radiating from him, of the future he was offering. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Yes, I'll marry you. Theodore slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They kissed as their family applauded and cheered. When they finally pulled apart, Destiny and Jordan were standing in the doorway, eyes wide. Are you getting married? Destiny asked. Yes, baby. Is that okay with you? Is Mr. Grant going to be our dad? Theodore crouched down to the children's level. Only if you want me to be. I would be honored to be your dad, but it's your choice. Jordan launched himself at Theodore, wrapping his small arms around his neck. I want you to be my dad. My real dad is in heaven, but you can be my dad here. Destiny joined the hug more slowly, thoughtful. Will we all have the same last name? If you want to, Theodore said. We can talk about all of that. But the important thing is we'll be a family officially. Nothing will change that. Then yes, Destiny decided. You can be our dad. Valencia watched Theodore hold her children, saw the tears on his face, and felt her heart expand with so much love she thought it might burst. This was really happening. They were becoming a family, officially, legally, permanently. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and celebration. James insisted on opening champagne. Michelle peppered them with questions about wedding plans. Patricia cried happy tears and told everyone who would listen that she'd known from the start they were meant to be together. Later, after everyone had left and the children were in bed, Theodore and Valencia sat together on the couch in front of the fire. I can't believe you said yes, Theodore murmured, playing with the ring on her finger. I can't believe you asked. Well, actually, I can. You've been hinting at it for weeks. He laughed. Was I that obvious? Completely. But I loved it anyway. Valencia snuggled closer to him. I love you. I love us. I love what we're building together. I love you too. More than I thought I could love again. Theodore kissed the top of her head. Evelyn would have liked you, you know. She would have approved of this. Michael would have liked you too. He would have been grateful that you're taking care of us, loving us the way he would have wanted us to be loved. They sat in comfortable silence, the fire crackling, their future stretching ahead bright and promising. When do you want to get married? Theodore asked. I don't need a big wedding. Just something simple, meaningful. Maybe in the spring? In the garden we restored together? That sounds perfect. We can plant flowers specifically for the wedding. Sophie's sunflowers, maybe? Valencia's eyes filled with tears again. I'd love that. A way to include everyone we've loved and lost, while celebrating the love we've found. Exactly. Theodore tightened his arms around her. Thank you for taking this leap with me. For trusting me with your heart and your children. Thank you for giving us a home. For loving us when we needed it most. For being brave enough to try again. They stayed up late into the night, making plans and dreaming about their future. When they finally went upstairs, Theodore walked Valencia to what was still technically the guest house, though she'd be moving her things to the main house tomorrow. At the door he kissed her softly. "I'll see you in the morning, fiancé." Valencia smiled. "Fiancé. I like the sound of that. Not as much as I'm going to like the sound of wife. But we'll get there." After he left, Valencia got ready for bed in a daze. She looked at the ring on her finger, still not quite believing it was real. She'd come here desperate and broken, and now she was engaged to a wonderful man, preparing to blend their families, looking forward to a future full of love. Life was strange that way. Just when you thought the story was over, a new chapter began. And sometimes, that new chapter was even better than what came before. 6 months later, the garden was in full bloom. The spring morning was perfect, sunny but not too warm, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of flowers. Valencia stood in front of the full-length mirror in what had become her bedroom, the bedroom she shared with Theodore in the main house, and barely recognized herself. The wedding dress was simple but elegant, cream-colored lace that skimmed her figure and flowed to the floor. Her hair was swept up with a few curls framing her face. The sapphire engagement ring sparkled on her finger, soon to be joined by a matching wedding band. "Mama, you look like a princess," Destiny breathed from where she sat on the bed in her own dress, a soft lavender creation that matched Jordan's vest and tie. "You really do," Patricia agreed, adjusting the veil. "Mr. Grant is going to cry when he sees you." "He's already crying," Michelle called from the doorway. "I just saw him outside and he's a mess." In the best way possible. Valencia's hands trembled as she smoothed down her dress. In an hour she'd walk through the garden to where Theodore waited under an arch covered in Sophie's sunflowers and Evelyn's favorite roses. In an hour she'd become Mrs. Grant, and her children would officially become part of Theodore's family. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind. Moving into the main house had been easier than Valencia expected. The children had taken to their new rooms immediately, and having everyone under one roof felt natural, right? Theodore had turned the guest house into Valencia's professional kitchen, a space where she could experiment with recipes and start planning the restaurant they'd begun discussing. Because that was the other big news. Theodore was funding Valencia's dream restaurant. Not as a gift but as a business investment. He'd insisted on it being in her name, her vision, with him as a silent partner. The location was already secured, a charming building downtown. The tentative opening date was fall, giving Valencia time to plan menus and hire staff. "Your grandmother would be so proud," Patricia said, as if reading Valencia's thoughts. "Starting your own restaurant, marrying a good man, raising beautiful children. You've built a wonderful life." "We've built it together," Valencia corrected. "Theodore and I. We've healed each other." A knock on the door interrupted them. James poked his head in, looking handsome in his suit. "They're ready for you whenever you are," he said. "Though I gotta say, Theo might pass out if we make him wait much longer. The man is a nervous wreck." Valencia laughed, her own nerves settling at the thought of Theodore anxious and excited downstairs. "I'm ready. Let's do this." They made their way downstairs and through the house. The ceremony was being held in the garden, with about 50 guests. Family, close friends, Theodore's business associates, Valencia's former co-workers from the bakery. Chairs were set up in rows facing the flower-covered arch where an officiant waited. And there, standing beneath those flowers, was Theodore. He wore a dark blue suit that brought out his eyes, his hair slightly messy despite obvious efforts to tame it. When he saw Valencia appear at the edge of the garden, his face transformed. Joy, love, and yes, tears all mixed together. The string quartet began playing, and Valencia walked down the makeshift aisle with Destiny on one side and Jordan on the other. It had been the children's idea to walk with her rather than having her walk alone. "We're all becoming a family together," Destiny had said. "We should all walk together." As they reached Theodore, he crouched down and hugged both children first. "Thank you for sharing your mom with me," he said quietly. "Thank you for being our dad," Jordan replied. Then Theodore stood and took Valencia's hands, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They'd written their own vows, standing in this garden to speak the promises they'd already been living. "Valencia," Theodore said, his voice thick with emotion, "when you answered my job posting, I thought I was hiring a cook. What I got was so much more. You gave me back my life, my hope, my ability to love. You showed me that surviving isn't the same as living, and you taught me how to do both. I promise to honor that gift every day. To love you and your children, to build our dreams together, to face whatever comes as partners. You are my second chance, and I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of that." Valencia's own eyes streamed with tears as she responded. Theodore, I came here desperate and afraid, with nothing but my children and a hope that someone would give us a chance. You gave us more than a chance. You gave us a home, a family, a future. You loved us when we needed it most, and you let us love you back. I promise to keep cooking meals that feed your soul, to plant gardens that bloom with hope, to build a life with you that honors our past while celebrating our future. You are my answered prayer, and I will treasure that always. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and when Theodore kissed Valencia, their guests erupted in applause and cheers. Destiny and Jordan hugged their legs, and suddenly it was a family embrace, all four of them together. The reception was held on the lawn, with tables covered in white linens and centerpieces made from garden flowers. Valencia had insisted on cooking most of the food herself, with help from a catering company for the logistics. She prepared all of Theodore's favorites, along with her grandmother's recipes and dishes that represented their blended heritage. This food is incredible, James said, working on his second plate. Valencia, you have to let me invest in your restaurant too. This is too good not to share with the world. She's already got investors lined up, Theodore said proudly. Word got out about her cooking, and suddenly everyone wants to be part of it. Valencia blushed but couldn't help smiling. The restaurant was becoming real, her dream taking shape. And the best part was having Theodore as her partner in it, supporting without controlling, encouraging without pressuring. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the garden, Theodore pulled Valencia onto the temporary dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. The song was At Last by Etta James, chosen because it felt appropriate. Two people who'd lost everything finding each other at last. Happy, Theodore murmured as they swayed together. Deliriously. You. More than I ever thought I'd be again. He kissed her softly. Thank you for saying yes. To all of it. The job, the relationship, the marriage, the life we're building. Thank you for asking. For seeing past my desperation to who I really was. For loving my children like they're yours. They're mine. Just like you are. My family. My heart. My everything. Around them, guests mingled and celebrated. Destiny twirled with Michelle while Jordan showed George his latest carpentry project. Patricia danced with her husband, both of them beaming. James gave a toast that was equal parts touching and hilarious. It was perfect. Imperfect in the small ways that made it real, but perfect in all the ways that mattered. Later, as the party wound down and guests began to leave, Valencia stood with Theodore at the edge of the garden, looking at the house that had become their home. Can you believe we're here? She asked. That this is our life now? Sometimes it feels like a dream. But then I look at you, at our kids, at this life we've built, and I know it's real. Better than any dream could be. What do you think the next chapter holds for us? Theodore pulled her close, his arms warm and secure around her. I think it holds whatever we want it to. The restaurant opening, the kids growing up, maybe more children if you want them. Growing old together. Making memories. Building on the foundation we've laid. More children? Valencia pulled back to look at him. We haven't talked about that. I know. But if you wanted to, I'd love nothing more than to have a baby with you. Someone who's both of ours from the start. Theodore's expression was hopeful but careful. But only if you want that. Destiny and Jordan are more than enough. They're everything. Valencia considered this. After Michael died, she'd assumed her family was complete. 2 children, no more, no less. But now, with Theodore, the possibility of another child felt like an opportunity rather than an obligation. Let's talk about it, she said. Not tonight but soon. Because I think I might want that too. Theodore's smile could have lit up the night. He kissed her deeply, full of promise and love. Destiny and Jordan appeared then, tired but happy. Can we go inside? Destiny asked, yawning. I'm sleepy. Of course, sweetie, Valencia said. Let's get you both to bed. They walked into the house together, their family of 4, and began the evening routine that had become sacred. Baths, pajamas, bedtime stories. Theodore read to Jordan while Valencia brushed out Destiny's hair. Then they switched, Valencia tucking Jordan in while Theodore helped Destiny with her prayers. Finally, both children were settled in their beds, breathing deeply in sleep. Valencia and Theodore stood in the hallway between the 2 rooms, hands clasped, hearts full. This is it, Theodore said quietly. This is the life I was meant to have. Not the one I planned but the one I needed. Me too, Valencia agreed. I lost so much but I gained so much more. They went to their own room then, the master bedroom that Valencia had once thought too grand for someone like her but now felt like exactly where she belonged. They got ready for bed together, comfortable in their routine, secure in their love. As Valencia settled into bed beside her husband, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. The fear, the risk, the leap of faith required to answer that job posting. The courage it took to accept help, to open her heart, to trust in possibility. She'd come here to cook meals for a grieving billionaire. Instead, she'd fed wounded hearts, including her own. She'd found family in unexpected places, love in the midst of loss, and a future brighter than any she'd imagined. Theodore pulled her close, and Valencia rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. "I love you," he whispered into the darkness. "I love you too. Always." Tomorrow, her restaurant would be one day closer to opening. Tomorrow, Destiny would have another piano lesson and Jordan another carpentry project. Tomorrow, they'd wake up as a family and face whatever came together. But tonight, Valencia simply held on to this moment. This perfect, imperfect, beautiful moment where everything she'd lost had transformed into everything she needed. She'd answered an ad to cook meals. Instead, she'd found home. And that, Valencia thought as she drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, was the best recipe of all.